What's going on, everybody? I am back to break down this DraftKings and FanDuel MLB DFS slate. Excited to get into it. Going to be giving you guys the top plays to get you winning some money in the green cash line tonight. As always, if you enjoy this content, would be greatly appreciated if you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. And if you are getting very serious about MLB DFS, I would highly recommend my MLB DFS premium content packages. You can check them out. Patreon.com/KJK_DFS. That's linked below in the description. I do offer a DraftKings FanDuel MLB package, a PrizePicks MLB package, and same thing for NBA. And if you want to get access to both, I do offer a combo package. You get access to both at a discount. So go ahead and check that out. Lastly, this is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you haven't checked out PrizePicks, it is a player props website where you can win money off of picking the over and under on things like player strikeouts, first inning runs allowed, pitcher fantasy score, hitter fantasy score, etc. Use promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match deposit up to $100 today. Again, that is code KJK DFS. Go to lock that code and get that free money. Start winning some money over there on PrizePicks. I've been rolling out daily content for them as well. Got the NBA playoffs going on. I've been trying to do as much baseball content for that as well, and that'll be going on throughout the season. So, without further ado, let's get into it, guys. We're going to talk about pitching first, as always, and then we'll transition over to bats. And as always, I like to go to sort my sheet by K rate. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. Figure out the top guys on the slate that we could play at the pitching position, and then we'll break down bats. And the first guy is going to be Luis Severino. I believe he's only offered over here on FanDuel for this slate tonight. Of course, we have two different start times for the slates again. Yeah, so this game's only going to be offered on FanDuel. It looks like only the Baltimore-Oakland game's available on DraftKings for some reason, even though locks at 7:05. So I think you could lock in some players from the Baltimore-Oakland game and or play guys from the 7 o'clock game. It looks like over here on DraftKings. On FanDuel, they do have the Baltimore-Oakland, LA Angels, Houston, and the Yankees game, as well as the St. Louis-Miami game. So we'll try to review all this for you guys that are playing on FanDuel, and then DraftKings, just keep in mind not all these guys are available. 37.9% carry to righties, a 29.8% carry to lefties for Luis Severino over a 26 innings pitch sample size since 2019, so he does really have good stuff. He's been hurt, but since he's been back, he's been phenomenal, and he gets a great matchup tonight taking on the Detroit Tigers, who are a team that does strike out quite a bit. He's in Detroit, which is one of the best pitching environments in baseball. Pulling up the diagram, you can see a lot of red going on out there in the outfield. Down the left field line, it does play a lot friendlier than the right field line, I will say, so it's a little bit splitsy in Comerica Park, but overall, it does play really deep to center field, so it's very forgiving on some deep fly balls to center, which is never going to hurt our feelings. And Luis Severino, like I said, does get to take on this Detroit lineup. That when looking at their lineup up and down as far as how they've fared on the season, strikeout rate and all that stuff. They do have some guys with some pretty hefty K rates up and down the lineup. Honestly, even the top of the lineup, the guys that are, quote-unquote, the ones that strike out the least, and Austin Meadows and Jonathan Scope still do strike out at a 19% clip apiece. So he's obviously a great option if you're playing over there on FanDuel. And the next guy I want to talk about is Carlos Rodon. He's a 33.4% K overall, 14.2% swinging strike rate. That's really phenomenal stuff. Elite swinging strike rate. He has the top on the slate. A 33.8% K rate to righties and a 31.9% K rate to lefties. Only problem is he has to take on this New York Mets squad tonight that does have a pretty deep lineup up and down. But the good thing is he does get to pitch in New York, which is a great pitching environment. Pulling up the diagram as far as city is concerned and seeing how that fares for pitchers. We know it's a friendly one, but just to prove it to you guys, Citi Field, see a lot of red going on as far as the hitting. So pitching, great place to be pitching tonight. Rodon does get to pitch in San Francisco, so he's familiar with the friendly pitching confines, but it never hurts our feelings that he's in one tonight. And then when you're breaking down the New York Mets lineup up and down, once again, they are a pretty talented lineup, but when we're breaking down strikeout rate as far as how they fared, pretty good, honestly, up and down. They do have some guys with some high strikeout rates in a J.D. Davis and a James McCann and Nito at the bottom of the lineup. But other than that, they do a pretty good job of putting the ball in play. So obviously less than ideal matchup for Rodon, but he does have that elite swinging strike rate stuff, which means he can pretty much get anyone to swing and miss. So, wouldn't deter you from playing him. Shohei Ohtani, same thing, really great strikeout stuff, really great swinging strike stuff. The problem is he has to take on Houston, which is a team that really doesn't strike out a lot. A 33.4% K rate to righties, a 25.5% K rate to lefties. And it's just the matchup for me. Ideally, we would not want to be taking on the Houston Astros. They do only have a 4.02 implied run total. Ohtani is a 133 favorite. It's just, once again, there's some other matchups in the league that we would prefer to target. So Ohtani is certainly going to be a good option, but the Astros just really don't strike out until you get down to the bottom of their lineup when you have guys like Chas McCormick and Martin Maldonado, both right around a 30% K clip. But then the guys through the heart of the order. I mean, we're talking about, 10% for Brantley, 13% for Bregman, 13% for Gary L, 17% for Kyle Tucker. So they just do a good job of putting the ball in play. Once again, going to be a viable matchup, but less than ideal. Eduardo Rodriguez on FanDuel once again only. This is good to take on a New York Yankees squad that has a lot of power, but they do strike out quite a bit. He has a 25.8% K rate overall, a 24.9% K rate to righties, and a 29.1% K rate to lefties. So we do prefer to target him against left-handed heavy lineups if at all possible. The Yankees definitely have a very right-handed heavy lineup, so that's less than ideal. But there are 13-mile-an-hour winds blowing in. We talked about Detroit being a pretty good pitching environment. The Yankees lineup has been struggling. They do only have a 4.21 implied run total. So it could definitely be a lot worse for Rodriguez if you want to play him over there on FanDuel at the 7-1 price tag. And then, like I said, the Yankees, they do have some pretty hefty K rates up and down their lineup. They've done a little bit better of improving that for sure with adding, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, DJ LeMahieu, Anthony Rizzo, some low strikeouts guys. But guys like Hicks, Judge, Stanton, Donaldson, Higashioka do have some strikeouts in their bats. So not quite as friendly of a K matchup this year, I will say, as it has been in years past. So just keep that in mind for the Bronx Bombers. A little bit different. Logan Gilbert's taking on the Texas Rangers. Is a guy that's a young arm with a lot of talent. He has a 25.6% K rate overall, a 12.4 swinging strike rate, 25.9% K rate to righties, a 25.3% K rate to lefties. So maybe a guy you could be looking to in this matchup taking on Texas. The thing that I want to be looking at as well is just kind of how stretched out he is. He is in Seattle, which is a great pitching environment. That's certainly not going to hurt our feelings. Then when we're taking a quick look at his previous performances and how stretched out he is, he's got 85 pitches in each of those games, 7 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts, 0 earned run, 1 earned run. So off to definitely a good start against Chicago White Sox, a pretty talented offense, and the Minnesota Twins also not a pushover of an offense. So Texas has done a really good job of improving their lineup this year with the additions of Marcus Semien and Corey Seager at the top of the order. But when you get past them, there are some strikeouts that we had. Brad Miller at the top, Lowe, Garcia, Calhoun, Solak. There are some strikeouts that we had in their bats. Jonah Heim striked out a decent amount as well. And just the fact of the matter is, Logan Gilbert's a young flamethrower with a lot of talent. So if you want to go to him, don't hate it. Comparing the price tags on both websites, I believe he is priced a little bit. Okay, he's at 9.5 over here on FanDuel. He's at 9.8 on DraftKings. So he is pretty similar pricing-wise. So that's something certainly. Jose Barrios taking on Boston. Same thing, man. They just really don't strike out. Kind of like Ohtani, same thing with these matchups we've been talking about. Just taking a quick look at the Vegas lines. The Red Sox do have a 4.49 implied total. Barrios really struggled in that first start as well. It's just like there's got to be better spots that we could target. I think Chris Paddock is one of those spots, taking on the Kansas City Royals. He has a 24.2% K rate overall, only a 5% walk rate, so does a great job of going right at hitters. A 26.8% K rate to righties, a 21.8% K rate to lefties. He's definitely a lot better against those right-handed hitters than he is against those left-handed hitters. And you get to take on a Kansas City Royals lineup tonight. That we're looking at their lineup up and down. They do have quite a bit of righties. I mean, there's definitely some switch hitters mixed in there. Some lefties. I'll be interested to see the Vegas lines. He's only 6.5 on FanDuel. As far as DraftKings is concerned, they've got him priced at 5.9. So that's something that's interesting. He put up 73 pitches last time out, 3 strikeouts, 3 earned runs, but it was against the LA Dodgers. I mean, that's a pretty respectable performance against a really, really talented lineup. And he's really cheap, and he gets a pretty good matchup, and he does have some strikeout upside. So I think he's the first guy that we talked about that, like, the matchup's there, the price tag's there, everything kind of makes sense for him when it comes to that. And then we get down to the range of, we were targeting matchups. So Chris Bassett taking on the San Francisco Giants. I think it could be interesting. He's looked really good with the Mets. 25.2% K rate to lefties, a 22.3% K rate to righties. He actually does do a better job at striking out those left-handed hitters. And once again, he is in the New York Mets Stadium City, which is a good pitching environment. He's a 104 line for him taking on Rodon. Only a 3.5 implied total for the Giants. He's 10.5 on FanDuel as far as DraftKings is concerned. They've got him priced at 9.6. He is stretched out, though. 98 pitches last time out, 93 the time before. 8 strikeouts, 6 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 0 run. So he's been really good. I do think he's going to be one of the top options on the slate. You could be taking a hard look to Jake Odorizzi taking on the LA Angels. If you're playing the FanDuel slate, they've been a team I've been targeting all year long. The LA Angels, they just have a lot of strikeouts in their bats. Odorizzi's not the most talented pitcher in the world, but he's, in Houston, which isn't the worst pitching environment. The Angels have a 4.48 implied total. And like I said, I just think they're a team that we can definitely target with strikeouts early on in the year. Their lineup has a lot of strikeouts in it, man. Ohtani 29%, Trout 27%, Walsh 25%, Marsh 32%, Ward 26%, Stassi 32%, Wade 25%, Velasquez 32% of the time. It's a lot of strikeouts. So, I mean, Odorizzi doesn't have the most elite stuff in the world, but the 23.7% carried overall, 23% to righties, 24.4 to lefties. It could be a lot worse. And the matchup, I mean, is just great. You have Dane Dunning taking on Seattle. I think he's another guy you could be looking to. Probably the last guy I would want to mention. I mean, Jordan Lyles taking on Oakland. They're really bad. Dalton Jeffrey taking on Baltimore. They're really bad. So I think you could take some stabs on those guys in the early game if you want to, just based on the talent that they're facing. I mean, they definitely don't have the biggest of talents in the world, as you can see. They're kind of at the bottom of my sheet for strikeout rate and everything. Marcus Stroman taking on the Tampa Bay Rays, maybe another guy. He does a really good job of keeping the ball on the ground. The Rays, although they do have a talented lineup, they do have their fair share of strikeouts in their bats. Does look like we could have some weather concerns, though, so that might be something we're a little bit concerned about. So we'll have to keep our eyes on the weather report, but if all things are good to go, and it looks like Oakland could be the same thing, so maybe we're dealing with some weather issues. Keep an eye. If you don't follow me over on Twitter, follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS. If the game's canceled or something, I'll oftentimes tweet that out for my premium content members. I always color the sheet red and cross those guys out if the game is postponed. So, but overall, I mean, I think that's a pretty good look at what we're looking to for pitching options tonight. Dane Dunning against Seattle, I think, is an interesting option as well. As I mentioned, he has a decent K rate, really good pitching environment in Seattle. That's a big ballpark upgrade compared to Texas, the ballpark that he usually pitches in. So the Mariners, you can see a lot of red and yellow going on at T-Mobile Park. Definitely a friendly pitching environment. And then as far as Dane Dunning and his ability to be stretched out in the season so far, he's gone out there and thrown 74 pitches and then 86 pitches. So I do think he's pretty stretched out. 7 strikeouts last time against that LA Angels squad, 2 earned runs. So do think he's a pretty interesting option taking on Seattle. Another squad that does have their fair share of strikeouts in their bats, and they aren't the most talented lineup up and down. They definitely improved. They definitely improved this year, so I'll give them that. But I think Dane Dunning could be interesting. So transitioning over to bats, as always, guys, I like to go ahead and sort my sheet by Sierra. Scaling our active ERA, it's a good way of determining how good these guys have been over the last couple of years, how good they're expected to be in the future, and the worst guy is going to be Dalton Jeffries. He has a 5.27 Sierra. 30.2% hard contact rate isn't the worst, though. He gives up a 389 slugging to righties, a 511 slugging to lefties. So he definitely does struggle more so against lefties. Baltimore is mostly a right-handed heavy lineup, but they do have some nice left-handed hitters in there with Cedric Mullins, Rougned Odor, Anthony Santander, Anthony Baboom, but they just don't profile the best up and down, I would say, with the righties. And also, it's in Oakland, which is one of the best or worst hitting ballparks in the league. It does look like we might be dealing with some weather, so I mean, sure, maybe you target some left-handed hitters there, but Baltimore just not the most talented lineup in the world, not the best ballpark. Daniel Lynch taking on the Minnesota Twins. I think this could be a really interesting spot for the Twins. He really doesn't strike anyone out. He gives up a 37.8% hard contact rate with a 527 slugging to righties. Does a much better job against lefties. He's really, really good against those lefty bats. So we're really just looking to target him with the right-handed power. But the Minnesota Twins definitely have a lot of it. I mean, up and down their lineup, they have Jorge Polanco, Carlos Correa, Gio Urshela, Kyle Garlick, Gary Sanchez, Miguel Sano, Ryan Jeffers. These guys all mash left-handed pitching. So, I mean, Polanco, Correa, Gio, Kyle Garlick is a left-handed specialist. Gary Sanchez, Miguel Sano, Ryan Jeffers, both mash lefties. So I think that the Twins are probably going to look like a pretty interesting power stack today for sure. Eric Fetty taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground, but he does give up quite a bit of slugging to both sides of the plate. A 441 slugging to righties, a 465 slugging to lefties. Ideally, we'd like a little bit more fly balls generated out of him, but at the same time, it is a spot where I think the Diamondbacks do get a nice ballpark to hit in tonight against Fetty in Washington, so maybe they're a viable low-end stack. They only have a 4 implied run total, so that should probably keep their ownership pretty low. Nationals Park, you can see, pretty friendly to hit in. So if you want to go with some Arizona exposure, maybe stack some of those guys up. Dalton Varsho, Ketel Marte, David Peralta, Christian Walker, Pavin Smith, Seth Beer, Carson Kelly, Yanni Hernandez, Geraldo Peroma. I would say, pretty solid lineup 1 through 7, 8, 9. Not the greatest, but still, I mean, you could put these guys in to round out your stacks. Get them low-owned. Overall, you're going to get the stack very low as is, though, so I don't think you necessarily have to go to the bottom of the lineup. You could probably just play the top of the lineup and get them pretty low-owned. Jordan Lyles taking on Oakland, same thing, bad pitcher, but bad offense and bad ballpark. He does give up a 467 slugging to righties, a 503 slugging to lefties. Maybe this game doesn't even play. But once again, I do think these two stacks are viable just based on the fact that their opponents, pitching isn't the greatest either. Tony Kemp, Sheldon Neuse, Sean Murphy, Billy McKinney, Christian Bethancourt, Elvis Andrews, Seth Brown, Christian Pache, Nick Allen. I feel pretty comfortable 1 through 8 in this lineup. But once again, Nick Allen, maybe get him low-owned, but I would say Christian Pache is the last guy that has the most talent in the order for stacking up them. Merrill Kelly taking on Washington. He does give up a 39.4% hard contact rate with a 466 slugging to righties, a 392 slugging to lefties. Pretty mediocre to both sides. They'll give up a little bit more slugging to righties, but more fly balls to lefties. So pretty splits neutral for the most part. And Washington does have some power throughout the heart of their order. So if you want to go to some of those power bats in a Juan Soto, a Nelson Cruz, a Josh Bell, Keeper Ruiz, Yadiel Hernandez, Maikel Franco, Escobar, Victor Robles, with some speed at the bottom of the lineup. Definitely not the worst lineup in the world when they get a friendly matchup. I mean, they're not the most talented lineup, but when it comes to facing Merrill Kelly, they could be interesting. Kelly's definitely gotten a lot better. So just keep that in mind. I mean, the guy does look a lot better this year than he has in years previous. These numbers might be looking a little bit better when I finally, after we get a reasonable sample size, about a month into the season, I'm going to be transferring this data to, this year's data. Maybe Merrill Kelly will be looking a lot sharper on my spreadsheets, but traditionally he does give up quite a bit of slugging. So if you want to target him, Sandy Alcantara is a guy you can target with left-handed power. The Cardinals don't really have a lot of that, so I guess we can just skip over him. Miles Mikolas, same thing. Miami, he does do a good job keeping the ball on the ground, except against those lefties, so maybe the lefties in Miami, but that's a pretty good pitching ballpark. Maybe you could pitch both of those guys. That game is only available on the FanDuel slate, but it is in Miami. Arguably the best pitching environment in baseball, I would say it is. It just really, the ball just doesn't fly well in Miami. It's really tough to hit there. So I would say those guys, I'm more so leaning towards maybe pitching them than playing hitters against them. Nick Pivetta taking on Toronto is a reverse splits guy, kind of, but also he's kind of splits neutral. Same thing as what we talked about with a few of these pitchers. He gives up a 461 slugging to righties, a 479 slugging to lefties. He does have decent K rate stuff. He's done pretty good since coming over to Boston, but he's a guy that gives up a lot of hard contact. And this Toronto Blue Jays lineup is filthy, so I think that they're going to be a viable stack for sure. They have over a 5 implied run total. George Springer, Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Lourdes Gurriel, Zach Collins, Mac Chapman, Alejandro Kirk, Ramil Tapia. I would feel comfortable playing 1 through 9 here. Espinal, even at the bottom of the lineup, a guy with some good hitting ability. He's put on some weight in the offseason. I was watching a little bit of games on the Toronto broadcast. I think they're thinking he's going to have a little bit more power. He definitely has the contact and the speed regardless. So I think the Blue Jays stack is definitely a viable one. That looks pretty good. Jacob Orizzi taking on the LA Angels. He gives up a 429 slugging to lefties. He's a lot better against righties, but overall does give up hard contact on both sides. But the lefties, he definitely does give up a lot more hard contact. With Shohei Ohtani being on the bump tonight, you're not going to have the ability to play him in your stacks, so that's a little bit unfortunate. That automatically makes the Angels not quite as appealing to me, but at the same time, it might lower their ownership, which is always interesting. So, Trout, Walsh, Rendon, Marsh, Ward, Stassi, Wade, Velasquez, maybe stacking those guys up against Odorizzi at some lower ownership than normal because there's no Ohtani. I think that's kind of an interesting strategy. Marcus Stroman taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. He really does a good job of keeping the ball on the ground, so I just really don't like stacking against Stroman, so that's probably going to be a no for me. We talked about Chris Bassett. He's been really good. He does struggle more so against left-handed hitting, though, so he gives up 392 slugging with a lot of fly balls against those lefties, even though he has a 25% K rate. So I think the Giants lefties could be an interesting low-owned stacked. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not my favorite, but they have a lot of power from the left-handed side of the plate. Yastrzemski, Belt, Jock Peterson, Brandon Crawford, Steven Duger. So I think that's interesting in tournaments. I mean, obviously the Mets stadium is really not friendly to hit in, and Bassett's been pretty good. But if there was ever a low-owned stack to go with, it would be the lefties. He's a lot better against righties than lefties. And the same can be said for like these next 3 guys, honestly. Dane Dunning, Jose Barrios, even Eduardo Rodriguez, which is a little bit ironic, has been struggling a little bit more so against lefties than righties. Reverse splits, lefty hurler himself. But if you're targeting Seattle bats or Boston bats, I would prefer going with the left-handed bats. That's just kind of the way the numbers shake out here. So Rafael Devers, Alex Verdugo, Jackie Bradley, kind of the guys you're looking to. You can certainly round out your stacks with the right-handed hitters. Boston just has a lot of talent up and down. If they're able to get Barrios out of the game early, maybe stack up on those righties and lefties, and they can get to that Toronto Blue Jays bullpen. And lastly, if I have to target Chris Paddock, I'm looking to go with the right-handed power. So the Royals, you could go to the right-handed power in their lineup for the Kansas City squad. If you want to go to, Whit Merrifield, Bobby Witt, Salvador Perez, Hunter Dozier. He does struggle more so against righties, reverse splits pitcher. And lastly, if you're looking to target anyone else, I mean, Logan Gilbert's the same way. So the right-handed bats for the Texas Rangers would make the most sense. If you want to target him with some power, go into a Marcus Semien, a Adolis Garcia would make the most sense. They're in Seattle, not the best hitting environment. And lastly, Ohtani struggles more so against lefties. So if you want to target some low-owned lefties in Houston against Ohtani, I do think that's going to be a valid approach. Looking to load up on those power lefties. So Yordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker would be the top 2 guys, and then Michael Brantley Not the most power, but he does have the nice contact bat and just a talented hitter overall. So that is my overall breakdown for this one, guys. Before I let you guys go, of course, as always, I got to give you my home run call of the day. I'm going to make sure I give you guys a home run call that's on both slates. Obviously, with FanDuel and DraftKings having different slates. Kind of giving me headaches with the, my core plays and my cheat sheet and stuff. I got to make sure that, I'm including the player pools for each site. It's different, but I'll make sure that I do that. And then for the home run call, I'll make sure I give you guys a hitter that's featured on both websites. So I will do that. But if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. If you haven't signed up for Prize Picks, sponsor the program, check them out. Use that promo code KJK DFS to receive an instant match deposit up to $100. I'll be giving out picks over here as well. And lastly, you can check out the premium content packages, patreon.com/KJK_DFS. If you're getting serious, I would highly recommend that. I think it's going to help you out a lot to become a better MLB DFS player, help you win some money. I definitely work hard on that content on top of the free content I put out over here. So without further ado, though, let's talk about my home run call of the day, guys. Let's get into it. And my home run call of the day today is going to be Jorge Polanco taking on Daniel Lynch tonight. We had mentioned his hard contact issues against right-handed hitting with a .527 slug and giving up 39.3% hard contact rate with a .392 WOBA, only an 18.7% K rate as well. And then when you're looking at what he goes to when it comes to his repertoire, really relying on the fastball slider changeup combination. He'll go to the fastball 40% of the time, the slider 26% of the time, and the changeup 18% of the time against those right-handed hitters. And Polanco, a switch hitter that does feature a lot of power from the right-handed side of the plate, and he mashes all of these pitches. Against the fastball, you're looking at a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. Jorge Polanco features a .450 ISO with a .500 WOBA. Against the slider, Polanco matches as well, a .222 ISO with a 47.83% hard contact rate. And lastly, the changeup he can take care of as well with a .269 ISO and a .406 WOBA. Get him into our lineups because he is my home run call of the day. So there we go, guys. Jorge Polanco, get him in your lineups. And that is all from me in this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. Wishing you guys all the best of luck tonight, and we will see you in the next one.